big thing. Let's talk like 20 minutes talk, 20 minutes discussion. Yes. Okay. First of all, I want a little bit talk about my background. Okay. I want to. Now we got it. A little bit about my background. Yes, you know, I know Veronica introduced me as a professor for sports psychology, which I am, but I'm also working in practice, basically with individual athletes. But 4 times in my life, I had the luck to work with teams, and these are the 4 teams I worked with. Basically, you see 2 photos. Ice hockey. I played myself hockey for like 10 years, and I was coaching a junior team between 1995 and 2000. And I did some research. I was cooperating with the University of Jyväskylä, which some of you know, that there are cooperations sometimes between universities, and there was a cooperation in Leipzig when I was working with them. I was with Taru Lintunen, and Taru knew that I'm interested in hockey, and she said, why are you in Jyväskylä? You have to go down to Viromäki, because Viromäki is the center of ice hockey in Finland, which then I choose, and they have an academic coach education in Viromäki, which I was involved for 2 or 3 years, and I could also work with athletes down in Finland. I was counseling for 2 seasons a female handball club in Leipzig, where I'm living, and I also worked with the under-19 floorball national team of Germany, which is not comparable to Switzerland, but parts of these guys are playing tonight at 6 o'clock against the Finnish team in the quarterfinal. Want to see some miracle tonight? No? Well, this is my team background, and in this time I was doing research also with teams, and the first part of my talk is a little bit about research, not too much, just to give you a basic idea for a tool which I want to show you, which I'm using basically as part of a team building intervention. When we talk about team cohesion and we look in the literature, sooner or later you will find the name Albert Caron from Canada, who was one of the most famous social psychologists in sports psychology, who is defining team cohesion basically about 2 dimensions. He says we have the view of the individual of the team on the one hand, and on the other side we have the view of the team on the individual on the other side. Both is worth having in your mind. He was calling the first dimension attraction to group. That means the individual wants to be part of a team because the team there are some aspects of the team which are attractive to me. This can be a task aspect which can be attractive to me. Like, for example, the goal of the team is also my goal. This is why I want to be part of it. Or it can be a social aspect. That would mean the guys are so cool in that team, and I want to be part of that team because I like going out with them and talking and hanging on. The other side is the group integration dimension, which means is the view of the team on the individual. We have we have to divide task and social. Also, the team could have the opinion that this guy could fit to us because he has the same goals as we have, or this guy is a cool guy, he maybe fits perfectly to our team. These are 2 dimensions, more or less 4 dimensions, and he developed a measurement instrument, the GEQ, which maybe some of you know, and there's tons of research out there use that diagnostic instrument. my basic interest in that team cohesion research was, how is team cohesion connected to performance? This is a tricky question. And there's not too much work out there which was looking about a direct link between team cohesion and success. The problem is you have to make experiments if you want to find out that monocausal relationship, which is more or less not possible in the peak performance sports area. But what we have is statistical tools if you have tons of data. And I was like it was like 1999 when I found a study of Andreas Wilhelm, who is a German researcher, who made a really, really good study from my point of view, not replicated until today. He was like collecting cohesion data from more than 150 teams from different sports. So he got that data, and he has the performance data of the teams, basically results and ranking. We can discuss about that if that makes sense or not, but he needed to operationalize the performance. And then he was running a path analysis over his data, and what he found out was there's just one dimension which has a direct link to performance, which is ATGT, the attraction to group with the task orientation. All other dimensions contribute to that ATGT dimension, but the direct link is from this analysis was the ATGT, the task-oriented attraction to group dimension. And that was cool. That was a cool research result from my point of view, because I was thinking about, if this is true, you just have to find an intervention to improve ATGT, and then you have, maybe, if the research is right, you should have a direct link to performance enhancement. So I was like thinking and thinking, talking to people, coaches or whatever, and finally I came out with an intervention which I call collective goal setting, which I want to show you today. It's a role-playing intervention, and Mario, believe it or not, I did it with ice hockey players. I know about the testosterone smell of the locker rooms and stuff like that, but I was surprised that they did it. So even ice hockey players are willing to do a role-playing intervention. And Frauke, just give me. I just brought it to you. These are the keys of that role-playing intervention. These cards. I'm going to show you on the presentation some of these cards. These are the key. This is the key, because what I have here. What I have here is a virtual team. So let's show you my intervention, the idea of my intervention. Basically, it's included into a team building intervention at the very beginning of the season. Very begin. Usually, you have players dropping off out of a team. Some players stay in, and at one point they meet the first time. And when they meet the first time, this is the crucial point where this intervention should be done. This is just to show you a photo. Don't try to find out what's on that cards, because I'm going to show you what's on that cards in a few moments. So we did that with US team, for example, at the beginning of a season. What I have is a virtual team with team players, a real team. On every card there is a player described, and this player can be a player like in a real team, but it's not the player in the team which I'm working with. Just these are the original cards. For example, we go through that now. Like for example the goalie. just read yourself. I don't need to read that. This could be a goalie like it can be. Or the defender. Or a left-wing offender. Or a center. Even the team manager and the coach, he's also part of the system, of the social system. And that's what you will find on the card. So the first time when we meet with the team, or very early in the season, it must not necessarily be the first time, but very close to the first time when they meet the first time, the team, we invite them to a team room, not in the locker room, in a team conference room. And basically the coach introduced myself, everybody was sitting on his chair, and I said, okay guys, I want to do a game with you. Everybody's laughing, mental stuff, game, hockey players. Anyhow, they were like willing to work with me. And the first thing is, I put these cards on the table, covered, and everybody should draw one of these cards. Everybody then should turn around the card and read it carefully. But just keep in mind what is on the card. Huh? Just the one player or the coach or whatever. You just had that card, read it, and turn it back again. And my first question is, what we are then doing is, how we call it, Blitzlicht, flashlight? I don't know, if you know that tool. Everybody has to say something. Huh? Everybody has to say something with regard to have this player in your mind, which is on the card. Have this player or this person in your mind, which is on the card. And I just want to know from you something. First, what is your personal goal this season? And second, what is your team goal this season? I just want to have these two answers. And then I'm going from person to person to person, and I'm documenting that on that sheet here. What you see is that they have lots of different individual goals, which you have to expect because humans are different. So they have different individual goals, like Mario told us that in his talk before. And they have team goals. And the most interesting part is, look here, the team goals of the person of the card differs pretty much. And this is the situation which you find also in a team, which in a real situation which you, of a team. And okay, I'm documenting these individual and collective goals. And in the second round, I ask them, introduce yourself. I mean, not yourself like a player, like the real player, introduce the person on the card. So everybody was just mentioning who is reading the person from the card. And the most interesting part for me is to observe what's going on and what's happening in the round, and people getting more attendance. I was looking around at that, looking at at my board and start listening to each other about the person on the card. Most interesting. And when the second round is over, I said, stop, that's okay. What I'm doing now is I'm going out and we meet tonight, and I'm doing a barbecue with you tonight. So I'm not doing anything else, just sending them home with this information they just gathered from that role play. And we meet for barbecue in the evening, and I'm just doing barbecue and start informal talks. They start informal talking, and what do you think is the topic at that barbecue evening mostly? Especially the role game. And they start to talk about that role play and about the transfer of the roles of the cards and the real situation. So this is basically an initial starting point that people talk about individual and collective goals and how different they can be. So the cards are only icebreakers. It's an ice-breaking thing. It's not a super modern role-play, psychologically based tool, but it's an icebreaker. Because players don't like to be very open on the first day when they met with the other teammates. They can just deal with the card, play on the card, then with himself. But once this ice is broken, that really works pretty good. Yes. We got that already. And on the next day, this is the most important thing. The next day is important because we are going on the ice, and the coach then should get practice examples when they have to change roles. So the defender plays offender. Sometimes the defender takes a goalie suit on. But they change roles on the ice to underline the content of the day before, so that they, again in practice, have to reflect about role overtaking, role being part of a team, and taking a specific role and reflecting about my role. So these are very funny practice sessions sometimes, especially if you have these specialists which are not used to taking another role. It's working much better with junior players like 15, 16 years old. This is the early stage which I would say you can do that type of role game. You cannot do it earlier because you need to have that experience and that intellectual development, which you basically has after 16 years. Yes, in summary, what is the goal of that intervention? It's the goal is to harmonize individual goals to team goals, because they are very different when teams met the first time. So if it's true that attraction to group, task-oriented attraction to group is directly linked to performance, this is the goal we have to reach, that we harmonize individual and collective goals. And this intervention, which I just showed you, can help to harmonize individual and collective goals. That means that they start to being aware of the difference in the individual and team goals, which are apparent in the team, and that they start to talk about that. So the aim is the harmonizing the individual and the collective goals, and basically that is the intervention and the goal and the idea which is behind that. And it is just one part of the team building process, but an important part. And I'm curious about your questions. Thank you very much.
Řekněte si zase o mikrofon, máme zhruba 10 minut na vaše otázky, tak prosím, ptejte se.
Yes, we have 20 minutes. Is that right?
Máme někoho? You need to speak, yeah. Niekto ďalší medzi tým, aby stihol? Čiže tam hore jeden. Na pravej strane. Môžete sa pýtať aj po česky, nebojte sa toho, ja to preložím.
Here in Czech Republic, an important question is: do you use like icebreaker the alcohol?
Oh my God! You mean at the barbecue evening?
Yeah. No, in the change room.
In the locker room. Well, it's not the main focus to the barbecue evening that they start drinking beer together. At least not a lot. But depends on I did not work with the absolutely top players in ice hockey. It was just Jyväskylä is first league in Finland, yes, but I also worked with minor teams. But I think my perspective is that players playing in the top area, they know about alcohol and about what it can do to them if they drink too much. Well, we all know that alcohol sometimes helps ice breaking. We know that if you just use it just a little bit. I would not recommend it because from my point of view, these role plays are much more fun than just drinking and talking. But yes, maybe you can use a specific small part of alcohol also as icebreaker, but I wouldn't recommend it officially not.
Me, yes, you not.
Okay.
Thanks.
Pokiaľ sú dospelí, samozrejme. If they are adult and not underage.
That's true.
Nech sa páči, ďalšia otázka.
Sorry if there are no other questions. Can I ask you something?
Sure.
How can you tell us how we can harmonize that team goals with individual goals? Can you tell some example, please?
For example, can I go back in? Okay, when they do that game, they also see this documentation, and in the second round, they introduce the player on the card. And then they ask sometimes, who are you? What did you see as an individual and your team goal? Let's, for example, say the long-standing pro who did win everything in his life, and who's now the leading person. And but the real player is a young one. Huh? He draws that professional, old, experienced guy. The first thing is he has to reflect, to take over a position which an old guy can have in that age. And you also have old guys sitting there, like leader persons who have to go back in their young years and okay, if I would be that player, what would be my goal? So this is a virtual team which they have to get from their own personal, from their own standpoint. They have to transfer their position into that play on the card. And the second round, they see before the second round starts, and they start officially introducing the play on the card. They just see what happens. That the team on the cards is very different. With individual goals, is sure, is normal, is absolutely clear. But everybody thinks, well, if we want to be a team, we have one clear goal, no matter which individual is behind it. And if they see that, they start to think about that. And say, who are you on the card? What was the player? What did you say for the team? Why? And the other person then starts arguing about why he chose, for example, it's okay, play downs. Because I was injured for half a year, the player on the card. And I cannot contribute so much. So, from my point of view, that maybe it's okay for us. It's the communication process which starts, and which makes the point.
Máme ešte tu jednu otázku a Veronika, ešte môžeme aj ďalšiu potom? Hej, nech sa páči.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. If I may ask you, during your role-playing interventions, how do you cooperate with coaches? Are they, for example, part of the barbecue, or how do you communicate with them?
Yes. I know you can controversially discuss this topic, but I have a clear standpoint. Managers and coaches and players are part of the system, which has to be harmonized in their individual and team goals. I know that's not the reality very often, I know that. But I don't like, as a humanistic sports psychologist, which I am, and I know that sports performance systems sometimes are run by other rules than a humanistic standpoints. But if we take it serious that a team consists of players, coaches, team managers, then you should be very transparent about your team and individual goals, and otherwise you have no chance about harmonizing that. So this is my standpoint. You can have another standpoint to that, I know that. I know that in some teams say, okay, I have two coaches. The one coach is the coach who is not very close to the players, and who is the tough dog, who is making tough work with them, and they should hate me and not love me, and I have the assistant coach, that's the guy you're talking with if you have problems. But this is not my philosophy. It would not be my philosophy, at least.
Okay, so it will be like that you will want the coaches to be involved in everything?
Yes, yes. Okay. That's my standpoint, yeah, at least.
Nech se páči, ďalšia otázka.
Would you please go a couple slides back for the model?
Yes.
Yes, here. You said that by increasing ATGT,
yes,
you could increase the performance. And
yes, this is the main message of that study.
And you could increase the ATGT by this intervention.
Yes, by harmonizing individual and collective goals. Yes.
And were you able to check within the teams whether their performance changed?
The problem is that I just worked with 4 teams. So, and in very different sports like hockey, handball, floorball, basically. And I didn't follow it from a very systematic, if performance increased and stuff like that. So I did not really research on that. I did not follow systematically the data out of it. So usually I should, if I would like to prove it, if that really works, you just have to go like every 2 weeks. You have to give the GEQ in the team. You have to document performance, however you operationalize performance. Mario told us that really is not always the best performance. Huh? Sometimes it's just taking the next development step. So I did not do that, so I cannot say something to that. What I can state is that the players were undergoing this team play intervention, this collective goal-setting intervention, that they were aware about the problems, about the differences between individual and team goals. They were aware of that, and they tried to minimize that as good as possible. That's what my perception was in that time. I cannot prove it empirically. Sorry.
Ďakujem. A máme teda ešte priestor na jednu otázku. Myslím, že Tomáš... Nie? Nie. Takže máme, alebo...
Yes.
I have a question. This model seems, not model, the exercise for goal setting, collective goal setting, for harmonizing individual and collective goals seems very interesting and nice. Mm-hmm. How did you come up with the idea in the first place? Because it's
how did I come with what?
Yeah, the idea.
The idea.
You know, why this way would
yes, it was basically reading. I was, I'm a professor, so I'm reading also research articles sometimes, and I was just, I was sitting on my PC, and the next Karen study came out. Some of the Karen studies are not so interesting, but it's not the Karen study, it's just a study using Karen's goal model. But Andreas Wilhelm, I know him, and that was a very ambitious project, so I wanted to know what he found out, because he had so much data. And he was publishing that paper showing that direct link between ATGT and performance. And I was just thinking the easiest way, if that's true, and this is a ton, these are 150 teams which are behind that analysis. If that's true, the easiest way is to get in with an intervention in ATGT. And what does that mean? That does mean that the player wants to be part of it because the goals of the teams are attractive to my goals because they are the same. And if this is not the case, you just have to do that to harmonize individual and team goals. That should increase ATGT.
Yeah, that's I understand. But you know, the specific exercise, the cars that you created, this whole methodology, you know, this is not intuitive. Intuitive would be like, you know, let's talk about our goals, but you created a way to icebreak this, and I'm interested how you come with this specific idea for this exercise, because it's not...
The specific idea behind that specific tool was that I'm aware of how players react when they make the first time. And that they don't talk open-minded about things like that, especially not about individual goals, because everybody knows that every player has individual goals which are more or less open. Sometimes don't talk about at all about that, sometimes very open, some of them very open. But basically, especially in the first 2 or 3 weeks when they are together, they are not so open-minded about that. And if you have to harmonize that, you have to find an icebreaker. You can drink alcohol, which we learned as an icebreaker. Yes, maybe that works, and you just go and let's have a beer and talk about individual and collective goals. You can do that, sure. But my approach was something else. To bring the team on the table and start to talk about that. Just my approach.
Já možná k tomu přidám svou zkušenost, že pokud je psycholog přizván k týmu většinou právě